In the early 1970s, Palermo was a city wrapped in beauty and danger. Behind the charm of its cobblestone streets and lively markets, whispers of crime families echoed through the night. The Carvelli family appeared to be one of Palermo's most respected business dynasties. They owned vast vineyards that stretched across the Sicilian hills, and their name was known for fine wine, olive oil, and generosity toward the community. But beneath that image of respectability was a tightly woven web of secrets, deceit, and power. Every bottle of wine that left their estate carried more than just a label. It carried the shadow of something hidden. The youngest Carvelli brother, Marco, was the quiet architect of that shadow empire. While his older brothers handled the visible businesses, Marco worked behind the scenes, creating pathways for smuggling weapons, cash, and illegal goods across Europe. He was a man of precision, never seen in the same place twice, and he rarely spoke more than a few words. His silence became his weapon, his calmness his disguise. He built a network so vast that even the police didn't realize how many of their own were already working for him. The Carvelli operations reached their peak when Marco expanded beyond Italy. He established connections in Spain, France, and eventually New York, where the family's front companies grew into a global operation. Art galleries, shipping companies, and luxury hotels became channels for laundering money and moving forbidden cargo. Every deal was planned months in advance, every risk calculated. The Carvelli name had become untouchable. Then came the shipment that would change everything. Late one summer night, a cargo ship carrying their goods vanished off the coast of Naples. The loss wasn't just financial. Hidden within that shipment were documents Marco had collected over the years, records of illegal trades, political bribes, and names of people who secretly served multiple crime families at once. Those papers were powerful enough to destroy entire organizations if exposed. When news of the missing cargo reached the Carvelli estate, unease spread like poison. Accusations flew in secret meetings. Brothers stopped trusting each other. Some believed the De Luca family had intercepted the ship. Others whispered that someone within the Carvellis had betrayed them. For the first time, Marco's calm began to crack. He knew whoever had those papers now held the power to bring the Carvelli empire to its knees. And in the silence that followed, a new storm began to form, one that would soon turn their legacy into legend. By 1984, Palermo had become a city trembling under the weight of blood and silence. The streets that once carried laughter and music now echoed with the low hum of fear. After years of uneasy coexistence, tension between the Carvelli and De Luca families erupted into chaos. What began as a dispute over smuggling routes turned into a ruthless power struggle that painted the city red. The De Lucas wanted a share of the Carvellis' lucrative shipping lines, but Marco Carvelli saw their demand as an insult. He responded not with negotiation, but with strategy. The first strike was invisible. One night, a De Luca warehouse mysteriously burned to ashes, taking with it millions in merchandise. The next morning, 2 De Luca enforcers disappeared, their cars found abandoned on the highway. Panic spread among the De Luca ranks. They retaliated swiftly, targeting Carvelli allies in Naples and Milan. Bombings, assassinations, and disappearances became part of daily life. Civilians stayed indoors after dark, police officers looked the other way, and the balance of power began to tilt unpredictably. Marco remained calm through the storm. He understood that brute force would only drain his resources. Instead, he infiltrated the De Luca family from within, turning their trusted men into informants. He fed them lies, planting seeds of paranoia until the De Lucas began doubting each other's loyalty. Within months, their organization was collapsing without a single direct confrontation. Marco had destroyed them using nothing but silence and fear, but every victory brought new eyes to his empire. Across the Atlantic, American crime syndicates had started to notice the young Sicilian mastermind who could erase enemies without leaving a trace. They wanted to bring him into their fold, or eliminate him if he refused. What Marco didn't know was that betrayal was already brewing within his own bloodline. His cousins in New York, eager for recognition, shared details of his operations with the Americans. They revealed secrets Marco had protected for years, including rumors of the missing shipment from Naples. The information spread quickly through underworld channels, catching the attention of men who saw profit in chaos. Soon after, bodies began appearing in both Sicily and New York, each found with a silver coin engraved with a serpent resting nearby. The message was unmistakable. Someone was hunting those connected to the Carvelli secrets. And though Marco tried to hide the growing fear within him, he knew deep down that the serpent was not an enemy from outside. It was born from within his own family. By the early 1990s, the serpent symbol had become a silent warning whispered in every criminal circle across Europe and America. No one knew who was behind the killings, but everyone understood what the mark meant. Someone had crossed the invisible line that separated power from punishment. Law enforcement agencies collected fragments of evidence linking the deaths of powerful figures to the same signature. Each victim had ties to smuggling, money laundering, or political corruption, and each death was executed with the precision of a professional. The media called it the Serpent's Trail, a string of murders, so clean and calculated that investigators could never find a trace of the killer. What remained hidden from the world was that the symbol of the serpent was rooted deep within the Carvelli family's past. Marco had once created a secret faction within his organization, designed to act as the family's invisible guardians. These men operated outside normal channels, loyal only to Marco and the preservation of the Carvelli empire. They carried silver coins engraved with a serpent as their mark of loyalty, a reminder that betrayal would be answered with silence and death. Over time, however, the faction grew beyond Marco's control. When greed and power replaced loyalty, the serpent turned inward, devouring its own master. The missing shipment from Naples, long thought to be lost, resurfaced during an investigation into an arms smuggling network in Eastern Europe. Hidden among the crates was a sealed box containing documents tied to some of the world's most powerful figures: politicians, bankers, and law enforcement officers. The files revealed their secret dealings with the Carvelli network. Marco had protected those papers for years, knowing that exposure could destroy not only his empire, but also governments and institutions around the world. When he learned that the documents were in danger of falling into the wrong hands, Marco vanished. His estate was found days later, perfectly undisturbed except for one eerie detail. All the family portraits had been removed, their frames left hanging empty on the walls. In the study, a single silver coin lay on his desk, beside a half-burned map of the Mediterranean. It was as if Marco had erased himself from history, leaving only a trace of the serpent behind. Rumors spread that he had been killed by his own creation, but others whispered that he had become the serpent itself, watching, waiting, and striking from the shadows when threatened. In 2003, decades after the Carvelli empire had seemingly vanished, international authorities launched a massive investigation known as Operation Shadow Wine. It was the result of years of surveillance, hidden recordings, and financial tracking that spanned across continents. Agents from Interpol, the Italian Anti-Mafia Commission, and the FBI worked together to uncover the remains of a network that had survived in silence. They began raiding properties across Europe, villas in Sicily, warehouses in Spain, and offices in Switzerland. What they found was beyond anything they had imagined. Behind the polished facade of luxury estates and legitimate businesses, the Carvelli network still existed, carefully disguised under layers of shell companies and offshore accounts. Art auctions, shipping firms, and vineyards were all fronts, and through them billions had quietly moved across borders without detection. The evidence pointed to one chilling conclusion: someone had continued Marco Carvelli's work long after his disappearance. Documents revealed financial transfers signed by people who were long dead, and coded messages that matched Marco's old encryption style. It was as if the ghost of the Carvelli patriarch was still orchestrating everything from the shadows. As investigators followed the money, they discovered connections to modern crime syndicates in Eastern Europe, South America, and Asia. Every thread seemed to trace back to the same origin, the old Carvelli routes established decades earlier. Among the seized items were several serpent coins, identical to the ones found near victims years before. One was discovered inside a sealed envelope labeled "Legacy," containing a single sentence written in Italian. To destroy an empire, you must understand its silence. Evidence suggested that Marco's disappearance had not been an escape, but a transformation. Witnesses reported seeing a man resembling him in Argentina, while others claimed he was living in luxury under a false name in Monaco. Satellite records showed that the night he vanished, a private yacht had left a small Sicilian port and disappeared into the fog. Its destination was never confirmed. Even after dozens of arrests, key figures involved in the Carvelli operations were never found. Files vanished from police databases, witnesses withdrew their testimonies, and officers who led the investigation began receiving threats marked with the serpent insignia. For every lead that emerged, 2 more disappeared. The closer the authorities came to uncovering the truth, the clearer it became that the empire had not fallen at all. It had simply adapted, learning how to exist in plain sight without ever being seen. The story of the Carvelli family did not end with the raids or the arrests. It simply drifted underground, where whispers still traveled through the criminal world like smoke through a tunnel. By the 2010s, the name Carvelli had become legend, spoken with a mixture of fear and admiration. Their empire was gone from the headlines, but its influence was woven into the foundations of modern organized crime. The family's methods of silence, secrecy, and control had been adopted by countless new syndicates, operating under different names across continents. The serpent had not died. It had evolved. Rumors began to resurface when a former banker in Geneva came forward with information about a sealed vault registered under a false identity. Inside, investigators discovered fragments of the long-lost Carvelli documents once believed to have vanished at sea decades earlier. The files contained coded lists, offshore account details, and notes hinting at ongoing connections between major business figures and underworld organizations in London, Dubai, and Hong Kong. What stunned investigators most was that many of the companies named were still active. It appeared that Marco Carvelli's designs had continued to shape international crime networks years after his disappearance. The new generation of criminals no longer needed guns or smuggling routes. They controlled power through digital manipulation, cryptocurrency laundering, and political influence. Yet the principles were the same. The rules of silence Marco had written still governed the underground world. Those who defied them often met quiet and mysterious ends. Reports of bodies found with silver serpent coins began surfacing again in various cities, always near major financial scandals or organized crime cases. No one ever claimed responsibility, and no one dared to investigate too deeply. Some believed that Marco never died, that he had re-emerged as a faceless architect controlling a network of global syndicates. Others insist that his followers had simply carried on his legacy, keeping his vision alive through generations. In truth, no one can say for certain where the line between myth and reality begins. What remains undeniable is that the Carvelli name, once thought buried under history, continues to echo through the corridors of power. The serpent still moves silently, wrapping itself around the world's wealth and influence. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of the underworld, a single silver coin still waits to be found, a reminder that the empire built on silence never truly ended.